Welcome to the Music Lounge, your favorite place to consume music culture from the early 2000s. Perry, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Andrew. I was actually thinking how this era of music, because it was sort of all over the place as far as genres go, we don't have a way to describe it, and I'm gonna start giving it a name called Music of the Millennium.
I like
And
that. Okay.
I don't know if that will stick or not, but that's how I'm branding it.
Well, you've already brought up
Um,
in a past episode the aughts, right?
the aughts,
The
yeah, yeah.
the
What is
You
aughts.
didn't know what the aughts
Or
were.
it's an accent thing, and yeah, I wasn't too familiar with that expression.
So, jumping into today's episode, today we have Diane van Horn as our guest, who was formerly the vice president of video promotion for both Elektra and Atlantic Records, and she had some great artists and great videos while she was working there. And welcome, Diane.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. I was very flattered to have been invited to this. I've really enjoyed watching some of these past episodes you guys have done. So it's been
You were
awesome.
very
Thank you.
influential in the early 2000s with some massive artists. Our paths, I don't think, crossed too much when I
No.
joined the music team, but you were definitely talked about a lot in my career.
Well, I appreciate that. And
Yeah.
and obviously, Perry, we worked together quite a bit back in the
Quite
day.
a bit.
So.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So typically on the podcast, we just jump right into the questions, but to give you a little peek behind the curtain as to what Andrew and I, and even Diane, our
Our
weeks
week's
have
been
been like,
like.
and sort of what's going on in our lives. I will just share that I am dog sitting this week, so the apartment I am in right now is not my own, although I wish it kind of were because it has amazing view out facing Midtown Manhattan, which is very nice, especially at night.
How many
Um,
dogs?
just
One?
one dog.
Okay.
I do not own a dog, so this has been, it's not a challenge. It's just sort of been my schedule just got a little upended because I'm used to being able to do things on my own schedule. And right before we were starting the recording for today's show, I had to make sure I got the dog fed so
That's
that
important.
That's
so that
important.
she wouldn't be interrupting us at all. But she's sleeping on her bed right now, so
Nice.
that's
Maybe she'll make a
good.
cameo before the
Maybe she will. She's a very sweet dog. Her name is Lexi.
I've
So
got
her
two
owners
dogs
will.
and I try and keep them separate, or at least from me, because during this podcast, anyone walks by our house, they will just go off. Delivery men,
Yeah.
Amazon comes 5 times a day. But I'm excited. Tomorrow night, I'm going to see Tom Segura at MSG, which
Sounds
I'm
awesome.
not too familiar with, and I'm quite surprised he has shows at Madison Square Garden. But
He's a comedian, right?
He's a big
yeah.
comedian. Yeah. I've seen some of his Netflix things, I think.
Okay,
I watch a lot of stand-up comedy on Netflix, so
nice.
this should be fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
looking forward to that.
enjoy.
Yeah.
I
And then
can't
one
imagine.
thing, yep, go on.
I was gonna say, I can't imagine seeing stand up at Madison Square Garden
I've
because
seen a
it's
bunch
such
of
a.
stand up there.
Okay.
Yeah, big comedians can pull it off. I saw Amy Schumer,
Mm-hmm.
Sebastian Maniscalco,
Love him.
and Ricky Gervais. I'm seeing him. Where is it? Maybe Radio City. I've seen him a few times before. But on Sunday, I'm pleased to say, and we've been arranging this forever, my daughter got into CU Boulder. She's going in the fall. And I don't know if you've heard of these bed party things, but her bed party is on Sunday. And it's basically when you decorate her bedroom, where we're using our spare room, of just like front to back, the colors, the swag. So we've been having packages come. We got to put up like decorations, hanging stuff. She's gotten, yeah. So you just cover the room. She invites friends over. They take a picture for TikTok and Instagram, and it's done. So
That's so cool. And is she a senior in high
$500
school
later.
then? Is she graduating high school this year?
Yes. So she
Because
got
my daughter's
into.
graduating high school this year as well.
Nice.
So yeah,
Congrats.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
CU Boulder was an easy choice after seeing a lot of other universities. She just
Loved it.
fell in love with it, taking a communications strategy course, which I think will be good.
Awesome. Wonderful.
Was this bed party thing invented by the universities to get you to spend more money on their stuff?
You know, I was talking to someone this week, and I think it was probably someone just selling the individual pieces, but the display they used was just a room covered with the bedspread, pillows, t-shirts, mugs, like teddy bears, blow up letters, and someone just decided, oh, wouldn't it be good if I just buy everything and surprise my daughter for her big announcement with her friends? And that's where it came from, I think. I hate it.
I'm
Be
actually
done.
kind of relieved that my daughter has not asked for that. So
Let me
she's,
know if she gets invited to any or if you end up having one. But you
yeah,
would
no,
know by
now I'll
now.
be on alert. I'll be on
Yeah.
alert. So
Yeah.
yeah, we she's not asked for that yet.
Yeah.
But so anyway.
We should just do this instead of talking
Can
about
we just chit
our
chat the whole
history.
hour? Yeah.
I know Perry's dying to get
No,
into it.
listen, I mean, we had this big buildup of talking about Elektra and Atlantic. I want to start asking some questions. So,
Let's go.
all right, let's jump into it. So, Diane, all of our guests have had some great stories to tell about their journey in the music business and how they ended up working either at or with MTV. What was your path to doing video promotion at Elektra, and was that what you always wanted to do at a label?
Yeah, no, I've obviously seen some of the previous podcasts or listened to them, depending on the situation. So for me, my journey in the music business started in 1991. So I am very old. But I originally, I'm from Los Angeles. I grew up in LA, and I got a job right out of college as the receptionist at Geffen Records. So, if I don't know if either of you had ever been to the original Geffen Records location on Sunset and Doheny, but it was an amazing building. It was basically a collection of bungalows. And so I got hired to basically answer the phone and sit at the front desk. You know, this predates, email and voicemail for the most part. So I would just take messages and
Actually, that's a great first position to be in because
yeah.
no one can get through the building
Yeah.
or to someone without coming through you, right? So,
Well, and then you also
like a
get to
gatekeeper.
know also get to know every single person
Yes.
in the company and
Yeah.
get to know what they do and get
Yep.
to know the people who are talking to them outside of the company. I do have one quick question though.
Sure.
Did David Geffen ever come in, and was he part of the company at that time?
He was part of the company, and I'll just give you one
Wow.
little real cool anecdote. So, as the receptionist, basically we had a lazy Susan on the desk, and I would take messages for executives when they were out of their office and just write them on these little notepads, and they'd have to come by the desk to pick them up before they would go upstairs. So David Geffen at the time had, I think, 3 assistants. Well, his main one was a woman named Priscilla, and she would come and collect his messages. But there was a period where after I was a receptionist for a while, I got promoted and I was a floater. So I got to work in different offices all around the company, A&R, promotion, marketing, sales, etc. But the real win was when I got to float up in David Geffen's office.
Wow.
I think Priscilla was on vacation for the week. And so I worked in his office for the week. And it was quite an amazing experience. I answered the phone and Calvin Klein was on the other line. Madonna was on the other line one time. It was pretty amazing for a young, 20-ish year old person to be able to experience that. So that was
I just finished part 1 of Cher's memoir, and she talks about dating David Geffen for a long time.
Yeah. Didn't ever see Cher come in the office or speak to her, but so that was pretty cool. So I was, I worked at Geffen again, starting in 91. And after I was a floater, then I became an assistant in the promotion department at DGC Records. So DGC was sort of like the indie label of Geffen. Most notably, Nirvana was on DGC. And so I worked actually as an assistant to Steve Levitt, who was the head of Top 40 radio promotion, when we brought Smells Like Teen Spirit to pop radio, which was a big controversial thing at the time. So that was pretty amazing. So I was with them on the radio promotion side for a while. And then I ended up working for Peter Barron. I don't know if either of you ever worked with Peter Barron. But
Peter Barron, who worked at MTV?
He did work at MTV
yes.
for a period of time, yes. At the time that he was at Geffen, he was basically the video promotion and video commissioner, right, for all of the videos that were generated from Geffen. So Smells Like Teen Spirit, obviously being probably one of the most famous ones. So at the time, he was working MTV and he was looking for somebody to help with more of the local video stuff. So I was like the local video promotion person. So at the time, there were a lot of little small, video shows on local networks around the country. Mm-hmm. So I started doing that. And then in 1995, I moved to New York while I was still with Geffen with my then boyfriend, now husband, who was also at Geffen. Geffen Records moved us to New York. It was basically for his job. And I said, oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah. Happened with me and my wife. She was at Sony.
Uh-huh.
And Sony moved us to New York.
Oh, that's so funny.
So it's nice when
when you can move across somebody else's dime. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah. That was kind of our situation too. And so we moved to New York. So we worked for Geffen out of the New York office, 1755 Broadway. It's still there. I walked by it the other day. Moving to New York got me out of just doing the local video stuff and more involved with more national channels like MTV and VH1. And I actually ended up leaving Geffen in 96, I think, for a 1-year stint at EMI Records, which was kind of a disaster. I'm not going to lie. That wasn't the best label to work for, especially at that time. And then I was, Elektra Records was looking for somebody for their video promotion role. I remember for some reason I was at home and I got a call from Greg Thompson's office. Greg was the head of promotion for Elektra. And he's like, you come in today for an interview? I'm like, yeah. And I changed really fast and ran in there and met with Greg.
How did that phone call happen? Did you know Greg or someone recommended you?
I didn't know Greg. There was this fairly small community of video promotion people out there. So I think it was word of mouth. And I'm sure I had sent a resume in prior to the phone call. But yeah, we met and we really hit it off. And I worked for him at Elektra, which was awesome. He was a great boss, and I really enjoyed my time there. So that was kind of how it started. And then I really started to get more involved with working with MTV and the music team.
Great story.
Yeah. And I should also add my Elektra colleagues at that time. I know you guys met with Lou Smith or spoke with Lou Smith and Larry Max. We had a lot of fun together. And Victor Bang was also there when I first started at Elektra as well. So we had just a really great team of people.
Amazing.
You also had a great roster of artists too.
Yes. So in 97, it was 97 when I started there. So, Elektra, right, like maybe the year or two before that, they had some really big hit videos, especially with MTV, with more alternative bands like Not a Surf, the popular video, Super Drag, one of my all-time favorite bands, who I'm so excited is playing in New York in October, and I've already bought my tickets. But they had some really big, hit videos. And then by the time I got there, it was really a lot of hip hop had started to become more of the big artists on the label. So, Busta Rhymes, certainly, which, we did a lot of work with. And then probably the most notable was Missy Elliott. Most notable because of her visuals. Busta Rhymes made some spectacular videos too. But Missy Elliott, I would say, was probably, in terms of a brand new artist that had, not been to MTV before or not really, been introduced to the public before, that was probably the biggest one, right at the time that I started there.
And that's crazy that the label put a lot of that faith and budget into that video when she wasn't a household name. She hadn't had 5 other massive videos before. And that's obviously today such a staple and iconic video that would still be amazing if it was airing today. What was it like bringing that to MTV and seeing that for the first time? Was there anything that it compared to, or you were just blown away?
Yeah.
And let's just say the name of the video to start.
Yeah. It's The Rain. It's The Rain. And I have to tell you, I actually rewatched that video a couple weeks ago for the first time in a long time. And I think you're right. I mean, it totally stands the test of time. So that video, well, I'll tell you just a little background. So Missy, she had a little bit of a name for herself, because she and Timbaland were, at that point, pretty well recognized producers, at least in the hip hop world, right? Coming out of Virginia, and I don't want to put words in Missy's mouth, certainly, but I think especially early on, Missy was much more comfortable behind the scenes, as a producer, as a songwriter and whatnot. And so to have her be sort of front and center was something that, she was a very kind of introverted, shy person. But she also had an amazing team of people around her. She, just like Busta Rhymes, were managed by Violator Management, right? Chris Lighty and Mona Scott, who had really established artists. So she had a really solid team behind her. So when we first saw that video in the office at Elektra, it was a big deal. Like Hype Williams directed it. He had already directed some pretty big videos, but this really was something that kind of set like him in a new, I think, level in terms of his visuals and whatnot. If anybody remembers that video, she's kind of in like a big almost looks like a garbage bag.
Yep.
Definitely not your typical, stereotypical female artist at that time in terms of, her appearance and her style.
Yes.
I mean, it definitely was right for her. And so, we saw the video at the office and everybody at the office obviously was blown away by it. But I do very vividly remember bringing the video into MTV, meeting with the music department. Greg Thompson was with me when we had big artists to introduce to MTV, and it was usually a team effort in every sense of the word. And it was probably the one video I remember everybody in that room just loved it. Like, sometimes you get like mixed signals from people. It was very clear that MTV, the whole music department, recognized that this was something very special and that they were going to get behind. And the other thing I want to mention, and again, I'm just hypothesizing, but that song was also kind of unique. It wasn't a typical hip hop song. And so I do believe that having that video exposure for that song made that song just explode, not only on the video channels, but also on the radio. It wouldn't I don't know if it would have gotten nearly as much radio airplay as it did if it didn't have that visual component.
And that's a testament to her as an artist, both in a visual medium and in an audio medium, is that she kind of could sense that she needed to create an arresting visual, both she and Hype, to complement what the song was in order to reach the audience that she was hoping to reach.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly said.
And she did it in subsequent videos also. I mean, so many of her videos were so unique, interesting, original. When she can sing backwards is incredible. And, or rap backwards, I should say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Get Your Freak On, that was another amazing. I mean, all of her videos, the visual medium was something that for somebody who was kind of, like I said, shy and introverted, I think having these sort of over-the-top visuals was almost like a way for her to, I don't know, kind of present herself in almost like a caricature type fashion.
Or kind of disappear into something that wasn't her. She was presenting an image that she felt, I can hide behind this image maybe a little bit and not really expose who I am too much.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm guessing. I don't know.
She really had a brand, and it was a visual brand. I remember she did Cribs, and I remember she was going through her cars outside, but just the way she presented herself and how she looked, and the color of her cars, like it was all packaged in her brand. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And she had an amazing glam squad team behind her, too. That was one thing is on the label side, just a little side note, we would struggle with sometimes because when we put Missy Elliott on TV, she had to look a certain way. And to get her to look that way, took some financial contributions on the label side. So her stylist, June Ambrose, one of the most well-known stylists, and went on to have her own show and all this stuff. So June Ambrose worked with her. Her makeup artist was a guy named Billy B. He worked with Christina Aguilera and all kinds of amazing people. It was very important to her, and frankly to the label as well, that image, it was consistent. And so, yeah, it was the Missy Elliott Glam Squad was definitely a big factor in getting her ready for anything on screen.
I do remember one conversation I had with you when I was trying to book her for something, and the response back was, we would love to have her do it, except she is not currently in cycle, and the cost of her glam is X amount of dollars. And I think my eyes popped out of my head when you said it, and I was like, okay, I get it. We're not going to book her. Completely understand.
Well, they were asking MTV to pay for it. That was the thing.
Yeah.
Didn't have the budget for online.
Yeah. I mean, that was the thing with Missy and with a lot of artists. When they were promoting a song or an album, we'd obviously book as much stuff as we could that they would allow us to. That was another thing about Missy is, and again, I mean this in the kindest of way, because I actually really enjoyed working with her. She challenged me a lot, but again, because of her sort of comfort level behind the, wanting to be more behind the scenes, when we would do an event with her, let's say it was at the Beach House, and I might be going off topic a little bit here, but, the Beach House, there'd be, performance, an interview, a potentially like, some sort of hosting slot. Then there would be all the other ancillary things like MTV.com, MTV Radio, all this. And I remember being on the phone with her. I remember sitting at my desk, I literally on the phone with her, rolling through like, here's what we're going to be doing. I think it was the Beach House in San Diego, if I'm not mistaken, which I don't remember what year that was. But, and she was like, Diane, I don't want to, I'll paraphrase. She's like, basically, this is way too much and there's no way I'm doing all of that. So
right.
You had to, you wanted, it was a delicate balance of getting them as much exposure, but keeping them happy. And of course, taking care of MTV and making sure that, they had what they needed from the talent, from the artist.
During that time, and we've talked about this on multiple other episodes, TRL was sort of the signature show that you wanted to get an artist on.
Yeah.
And, most people who do video promotion have a great or favorite TRL story to tell, like first time having an artist on the show, first time a video making the countdown. Did you ever have an artist on the show that you brought in and you were like, oh my God, I can't believe I got artist X to be on the show? And, what was that like?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I do have a story, and it's probably one of my favorite stories from being in the music business in general. So I was fortunate enough at Elektra to work with a little band called AC/DC. You might have heard of them, put out some big records, definitely been around for a while. So they put out an album, it was in the late 90s, called Stiff Upper Lip. And I got to, first of all, being able to work with them and meeting them was just really one of the highlights of my entire life. Like, just awesome people. So long story short, they did make a video for that album and for that song. It was the lead single. And it was pitched to MTV. Can they perform on TRL? And obviously, AC/DC and TRL don't really go together. I mean, they're not Britney Spears, they're not Linkin Park, they're not Busta Rhymes. But I will say, I was pleasantly shocked and surprised, but I kind of credit Tom Calderone and I think Michelle Dix, and I'm sure others in the department that actually said, you know what, let's do this. Going into the MTV studio at 1515 Broadway with AC/DC and having them set up a whole performance in the TRL studio. If you've ever met the AC/DC band members, they're incredibly lovely and nice people. And Brian Johnson in particular, the singer, is very, very funny. And he would come up to me, he's like, this is the hallowed halls of hip hop, because to them, all MTV played was hip hop. They were like,
Right.
why are we here, But they did a great performance. They really appreciated it. I think and I hope that it exposed them to some audience and viewers that they wouldn't have normally been in front of, and it was a great moment.
A band like that, the audience were familiar with their hits, right? So
Sure.
whether it was from their parents or a commercial or just hearing, so you have to cater to the audience.
Mm-hmm.
Or were they performing a brand new song that no one knew?
They did perform a brand new song,
right.
And then they might have done a second song too that maybe was an older hit. So,
the thing about
an amazing moment.
Yeah, the thing about MTV and TRL was all about creating a moment too.
Yes.
It was like, let's sort of do something that our audience isn't expecting. Let's do something out of the box. Let's bring in this classic headbanging band to introduce them to this audience that, as you said, was expecting like an NSYNC or a Britney Spears.
Sure.
And those things always seem to work for whatever reason, because they knew how to do it in a way that was both organic and interesting, I think.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. I mean, and being on the programming side of it from the MTV perspective and having that openness and awareness to introduce their viewers to maybe something that they're not familiar with, or maybe had only heard of, like you said, Andrew, by their parents. That was a bold move on their part, but I think ultimately it worked. And I know in some of your previous podcasts, you guys talk about the diversity on TRL, and that you could go from, a very hip hop video to a very mainstream top 40 video to more of an R&B. I mean, it really kind of ran the gamut in that regard. So.
Did any senior execs in the company come down for the taping because they were just like, oh my God, I have to meet the guys from AC/DC?
Oh, yes, absolutely. In terms of like MTV folks that came down. Yeah. I mean, well, Tom, of course, and Michelle, and most of the music team that I recall, they were all there. I don't know if this was ever discussed on previous podcasts, but all the labels were assigned like a different music person within MTV. They were kind of like your liaison in. So mine was, I had a few, but I think at the time it was Buttaman. So he definitely was down to meet AC/DC, and so it was a very cool.
Which doesn't go, but I'm sure he had a great time seeing them.
Well, and that was a cool thing about being a label rep too, because you didn't always work with the artists that were in the genre that you were either a fan of or you were expected to be a fan of. But for me on the digital side, because I worked with almost every label, because we didn't sort of split things up that way, I got exposed to so many more artists that I probably never would have known about or had to listen to had it not been for the fact that I was dealing with every genre with every label. And it was my music education, really. I have to say, prior to working at MTV, I had sort of my faves and my favorite genres, but I got exposed to stuff that I never would have listened to. And I also became a fan of things that I never thought I would be a fan of also. And that was the great part about it. So I'm forever grateful for having had that opportunity.
Yeah, no, I definitely would agree with that. We talked a lot about the Missies and the Bustas and stuff, but Elektra had a very diverse roster, big bands like AC/DC, Metallica, certainly. And then a lot of like really awesome indie rock stuff. Bands like Old 90, Remy Zero was signed to Elektra while I was there. They were previously on Geffen, so that was kind of a full circle moment. And it was great to work with at the MTV2 folks like Holly Showman. I think we shared a lot of similar musical tastes. So, some of the bands that maybe didn't get a lot of the mainstream MTV play, we were able to work on with MTV2, with MTV.com, MTV Radio, Raquel Bruno, shout out to her. So it was great to be able to work all those different genres for sure.
Absolutely.
We would always find a place for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what's best for us is when these bands would travel from, you know, franchise to franchise or from channel to channel, and they start off as like a subterranean artist, and then who knows, they could get a spot on an MTV show. So it was always good for us to educate the audience. And so we're going to go into a little bit of a quick fire round, which you may have heard. Answer as quick as you can. It's very easy. We're not going to stub you or anything. So what was your first concert?
Oh, that's an easy one. I was 12 years old and I saw Bruce Springsteen at the LA Sports Arena. 1980, it was the River Tour. So
incredible.
We set the bar pretty high.
Absolutely.
It was hard to top that, but that was an amazing one.
Nice. I was 11 and my brother took me to see Pink Floyd.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Which is kind of equivalent to you over here. I was in London, and you know, so
Pink
equivalent
Floyd
to a Springsteen.
How about you, Gary?
Well, I will say my first time seeing Springsteen was while I was at MTV, so I was much older than you. But my first concert was The Police, The Fix, and A Flock of Seagulls.
Ooh,
that's a good one.
What was formerly Schaefer Stadium is now Foxborough Stadium, where the Patriots play.
Gotcha.
Wow.
Awesome.
What is your favorite era of music?
Well, gosh, that's a little tough just because I love so many different types of music. I mean, I always kind of consider myself a bit of a closeted hippie. And I love me some like, you know, Woodstock, you know, little like Crosby, Stills and Nash and kind of that folky, you know, hippie stuff from the late 60s, early 70s. Probably my favorite band of all time is the Rolling Stones, and my favorite album of theirs is Exile on Main Street. So I would say like the late 60s, early 70s, you know, rock is probably, if I had to like narrow it down. But there's so many amazing bands and so much amazing music even like today that I love.
Amazing. Which artist would you love to see perform, dead or alive?
The artist that I would love to see that I never got to see would be Led Zeppelin. Never saw Led Zeppelin perform, but that would be amazing. I actually sort of begrudgingly went to see, and don't judge, but I went to see Sammy Hagar this summer at PNC Bank Arts Center. And I only bring that up because he was actually really fun. It was with my husband and a bunch of his high school friends, and they had an extra ticket. I'm like, all right, I'll go. So it was actually really fun. But Jason Bonham was the drummer.
Oh, wow.
On that tour. So I kind of got to see like some Led Zeppelin adjacent, I guess.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
I was into the Doors a lot in my early teens.
Yeah, I got a little bit, I just to work with the Doors on Elektra. They were on Elektra their entire career. And the remaining members had released an album of some sort. I remember Danny Sugarman was their manager still.
Yep.
And we did an VH1 behind the music.
Storytellers.
Thank you. Yes.
That was my first day working in MTV corporate communications. So that was probably fall 2000. And that was the first event in my first week. And I had like chills. I could feel Jim sitting up on the rafters. Yeah. Like the whole thing. So
yep, that I was at that taping. That was amazing. It was like Ian Astbury sang and Perry Farrell. I remember Perry Farrell's rider, like, you know, for his Green Room rider was like insane. And so that was pretty awesome.
So we were there together.
Yeah, we overlapped. We didn't even know it.
Yeah. What was the first album you bought or owned?
The first album I bought with my own money was AC/DC Back in Black. Swear to God. Incredible. So at the Warehouse in Marina Del Rey. I remember very vividly going in there and buying it.
Mine was Roxy Music.
Ooh, that's a good one. Awesome.
Brian,
how about you,
Brian Ferry.
Yeah.
Okay, this is going to sound really embarrassing. I think my first album was actually a comedy album by Joan Rivers.
Oh, God.
But my first album I bought was I think Men at Work.
Okay.
Respectable.
Yeah.
Love Colin.
Do you ever go to a go-to karaoke song?
Ooh, God, I'm really bad at karaoke. That's a tough one for me.
You can pass, yeah.
I've done karaoke. I'm trying to remember what I sang. I was probably very inebriated, so I
Yeah.
don't remember. Yeah, I might have to pass on that one.
Okay. Would you rather have an intimate dinner with members of AC/DC or the Rolling Stones?
Ooh, if I could have dinner with Mick Jagger, I mean,
That
I
would be
love
it.
the AC/DC boys, but yeah, I'd have to go Mick and Keith. I would definitely go that route for
Cool.
sure.
Do you have a favorite artist?
You know what? I do. I really love The War on Drugs is a band that I really
Okay.
dig.
Are you discovering new music?
Just Spotify
Yeah.
and Apple Music, and I'm a
The
really huge
algorithm.
yeah, the algorithm. But you know what I'm a big fan of, and I don't know if you guys have ever checked this out. There's a streaming radio station called Radio Paradise.
Hmm.
It's amazing. You can download the app, and it's this really well curated. It started in Paradise, California, before Paradise, California burned down,
Right.
and now they're up in Northern California somewhere. It's this guy who used to be a DJ, and he plays everything from new current stuff to old folky things and everything in between. And then he's got different stations within the Radio Paradise platform. So there's the main mix, there's the mellow mix, there's the rock mix, there's the world mix. So when I don't know what to listen to, I just put Radio Paradise on. And it's like he
That's
figures
great.
it out for me. So
That's
I
a great
highly
suggestion.
recommend it. Yeah, it's really, really cool.
All right, you did very well. Apart from you only had one pass,
Yeah.
which is fine. Going back to MTV, I was a label liaison as well, and sitting in the music meetings. Once we see a video, our partners in crime are the lovely guys from Standards and Practices.
Yes.
Had you ever had any circumstances where a video had just so many edits and you went back and forth with the artist, the label, and just a big battle to get a video on, or was your time there pretty smooth?
No, we definitely had some, battles, if you want to call them that. I mean, on the hip hop side, it was almost expected that you were going to submit a video and you were going to have to edit it. Over time, you learn what will fly and what
I was
won't.
going to say, is there a lot of, well, MTV, you would have to take this, so you kind of set it up as best as you can with edits before?
Yes. I mean, we without compromising, the artistic integrity of what they wanted to shoot or film.
Yeah.
And there was, look, a lot of times, there would be an unedited version of a video, and then there would be an edited version that would be used for MTV and the national outlets. So on the hip hop side, a lot of the things that would come back would be, well, first of all, logos on clothing were a big no-no. Overtly sexual gestures and, scantily clad women were a no-no. But then there were also a lot of words. And a lot of times the words were things like, I don't even know what that means. But apparently that's some slang for something that I couldn't tell you.
Which the interesting part is that the Standards and Practices team were probably the least street people you would ever meet in your life, and they still knew what these words were.
Yeah, they had to learn the Urban Dictionary. Right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, they must have had a mole on the inside or something. I don't know, but there were a couple of videos that were not so the hip hop one was expected. So one of the biggest songs that Elektra released in those years, the late '90s, was when Third Eye Blind came out. So Third Eye Blind, their first album had Semi-Charmed Life on it, right? Which was a massive hit. Little side note, that video was a real struggle to get played. The music department at MTV just did not embrace Third Eye Blind. And it wasn't until that song became a massive hit on the radio that they were
they couldn't ignore it anymore. Yeah.
Was it more of a VH1 supported song, or just
at that point? No, I mean, I think VH1 was not quite as pop forward, was more of an adult contemporary network at that time. So it was really like a pop song. But I bring it up in this context because the song, the lyrics, even though I didn't realize it at the time, it actually talks about crystal meth right? There's a line in the song that refers to, I couldn't repeat it now. I don't remember exactly how it goes, but it talks about crystal meth. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize that's what he was singing about. But once we got the video approved and accepted by MTV, we had to edit out a lot of those lyrics. And I was not expecting that to happen. So, and then we eventually, got some good exposure with Third Eye Blind on MTV in other ways. Like, again, I'll credit Michelle Dix. She was really important and getting Cribs booked and a lot of those other shows that we did with them over the years. And then there was another video that it wasn't a huge record for them, but Metallica put out an album of covers. I guess it was probably, again, late 90s, 97, 98, something like that. And they did a cover of Bob Seger's Turn the Page. Mm-hmm. And they made what I think is an amazing video for it. But it's basically, and I rewatched it recently just to remind myself. And I look at it now and I think it's not really, it's a sad, very dark video, but I don't find it as an offensive video. But it basically tells the story of a woman who, to support her child, was a stripper by day and a prostitute by night. And it starred this woman who was, I guess, a porn star or something. But we submitted it and MTV came back with a bunch of edits, mostly around some of her moves. And I remember sitting in Greg Thompson, and Alan Voss was the general manager of Elektra at the time. It was me and the two of them. We had to watch this video over and over and over again and because we had to lay out to management, to Q Prime, what needed to be taken out. And that was a bit of an awkward thing to sit with your two male bosses and watch this explicit video with them. But I think it did get some airplay, but it was never a huge record, but it was a really cool video.
Did an artist ever say, no, I'm not going to edit my video, and then it just won't get played on MTV?
Some of the smaller hip hop artists, Fabulous. Do you guys remember Fabolous?
Yeah.
Fabulous. I don't remember any of his videos being particularly offensive or something that would have a lot of standards issues with it. But he was one that kind of had a little bit of a chip on his shoulder and was always very adamant about, I'm not doing this and I'm not doing that. And I'm like, you know what? I'm trying to help you. So if you're not interested, there's only so much I can do. And I really loved working with his team. He had a great group of people around him, but he was not my favorite to work with. He was very difficult. He was always late to everything. And he was just had a bit of it, like I said, a chip on his shoulder, didn't want to change anything. And I was like, all right, well, that's on you.
Exactly.
So either you want it or you don't. So
you can only bend so much. And then you're sort of like, you know what? I can't do anything more for you. In addition to all of the studio-based music programming that was on the channel, some like your TRL, MTV went on location quite often, whether it was for spring break or the beach house or even the VMAs or movie awards. And a lot of these shoots had artists as part of the shoots, and they were on hand to perform or be judges, as you said earlier with Missy. Do you have a craziest on-location story with an artist that you can share? And you can say the artist or not, but whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah, the one that comes to mind immediately, and it's just a really simple story. We were at I believe it was spring break in Cancun, which, by the way, I remember being at spring break tapings in Cancun, and all I could think about was, if I ever have a child, they're never coming to Cancun for spring break. After some of the things that I witnessed, I'm like, there is no way.
Have you told your daughter your spring break stories? Okay,
I have.
All right,
She is well aware. So
guess where my daughter's going for spring break this year?
Huh?
Guess where my daughter's going for spring break this year? No, I'm only kidding. Well, she's going to DR. Probably worse. Or almost
never been there, but no, some of the things I witnessed, I was like, oh, good Lord. But no, this is a much more tame story. So I was with Busta. We were in Cancun, and we hopped in a van to go. I don't even know I don't think he was performing. I think he was just doing some hosting stuff. Busta did a lot of hosting and other ancillary things for MTV because he was such a personality. But we hop into the van, and this unknown white rapper was in there by the name of Eminem. And his manager, Paul Rosenberg, and it was just us in the van. And it was very cool. Like, I mean, he had just come out, and it was obviously he was big enough to warrant a visit to MTV Spring Break. So he wasn't a nobody, but it was very, very cool to be in a small van with Eminem. And then I have two others that I think of, but one that I hadn't thought about in a long time, but I don't know if you guys remember House of Style.
Yes, of
Mhm.
course.
Loved House of Style. It was
Yeah,
such a
yeah,
great
yeah, absolutely.
So one of the House of Style shoots we did with Bjork. And
Oh,
Bjork was a really cool
Wow.
artist to work with. So
Yeah.
it was probably very early at Elektra, it was probably 97 if you wanted to look it up. But we went with Bjork, and her manager at the time was this woman named Co. And we were in this big stretch limousine, and it was just the three of us. And we went down to this vintage store on the Lower East Side. If you said the name of it, I'd be like, yeah, that's it. But I don't remember it offhand. And so Bjork, we taped the House of Style thing. And while she's there, she's eyeing this Indian chief headdress that was up on display. She took a liking to it. She ended up buying it and putting it on. And I always tell the story when people ask me, why I live in New York or the New York area. And I'm like, well, so here's Bjork, who is very recognizable as Bjork.
Yes,
But not
yes.
only that, she's got this long to the floor Indian headdress on. We get back in the stretch black limousine. We're driving back uptown to go back to the office. And she decides she needs to stop at a Duane Reade in the Village. So we pull over. Co and I stay in the car. Bjork gets out, Indian headdress on, goes into the Duane Reade, buys whatever it is she buys, gets back into the car. When I tell you, nobody even turned to look at her because it's New
Wow.
York. Like, who cares? This is what everybody does.
yeah,
And that to me was such a quintessential New York moment, and
that's
I
amazing.
will never forget it. It was
Who
awesome.
who was who was the House of Style host that was at the taping with you? Was Cindy still there, or was it like Molly Sims or like
It might
Amber and
be.
Shalom? Or
I don't recall.
yeah, just curious.
Yeah, yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that was really cool. We did a few House of Style shoots with some artists that were a lot of fun. It was a fun little.
It's funny, we haven't really talked about House of Style much on this show.
We
Yeah,
haven't,
Um,
no.
and
yeah,
and again, it just goes to the whole MTV ecosystem. There was something for every artist to do in some regard at
yeah.
MTV.
Mm-hmm.
MTV.com, MTV Radio, all of the shows that News produced, all the
Yes,
shows that the channel produced. I mean, there was so much happening there at that time. And we've even talked about how that there could be days when there could be like 5 or 6 different artists coming through the building, whether it was for TRL or just coming up for a meeting in the music lounge, or they were stopping by radio to do something. It was just, I mean, it literally was like the epicenter of pop culture
yeah,
for that period of time, I
yeah,
think.
yeah. No, I think you're spot on. I mean, bringing up the Bjork story reminds me of all the other we shot with The Cure for MTV2, and some really amazing bands that again there was always a place
They
for
did a
them.
$2 bill, I think we talked about with Tom Calderone.
Yeah, with The Cure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
yeah. You
was
know what?
that was a collab with the UK office. So I think they shot
Gotcha. They
across the
shot it.
pond, but
Yeah, yeah.
it aired in the US, I'm sure. So
Where was the most fabulous location you ever got to go to as part of a shoot for MTV?
I'll tell you, that's it was a little later on. It was more like in the early 2000s, but I got to go to Hawaii with
Wow.
Ti for making the video.
Wow.
amazing.
That was amazing. Yeah, we were on the North Shore of Hawaii. The name of the song is like why you gonna do me like that or something like that. It was actually really cool. And another one of my favorite, to your point, like you work with artists that you may not have ever really listened to their music, but Ti was by far one of my favorite people to work with.
So,
Just an
so that
awesome.
was a location already planned
Yep.
out for the video shoot. So
Yes,
would
for the
you have
video
gone
shoot.
anyway? Do you think?
No, I went because MTV sent a crew to do the making
Right.
the video shoot
Gotcha.
Yeah.
there. Otherwise, I would not have been able to go.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
So
Amazing.
that was really, really amazing. So that was
The
probably the
only
most
the only
luxurious.
reason they decided to do the making the video was because it was in Hawaii,
Yeah.
An
probably.
excuse to go
And
there.
I have to say, T.I. is one of those artists too who is, he might not necessarily be making the music that is as big as it was 20 years ago, but he's still in pop culture consciousness. And that just goes to his personality as an artist.
He had a
Yeah.
series, so yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
He had a series. He's a comedian now. He does stand-up comedy. I mean, he does all kinds of stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't
Did not
know that.
I have to
Yes,
look
he
at that up.
does.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you for the tip.
Yeah, maybe he and Letterman will do a show together one of these days. He definitely made his mark on pop culture.
Yeah.
And even Busta Rhymes, his music faded a little bit, but then all of a sudden he's had a resurgence, and Missy, of course, as well, and, a whole host of others. So, yeah, I find, and again, this is a bit of a grand statement, but like the artists that seem to have the longevity like that are the ones that really treat people respectfully and kindly. And some of these like fly by night artists were usually the most difficult to work with and had the biggest egos and people just didn't want to deal with them because you had so many other options.
Right. And it's the thing where it's like when you have a choice of who to work with, you want to work with somebody that is going to make your life easy rather than difficult, or if someone has a downswing and they're kind of coming back up, you want to support them because you know who they are as a person and you feel good about working with them and good about supporting them. Mm-hmm. And then the artists who aren't or less like that, you're kind of like, life is too short. I don't need to be part of that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
I will say,
sorry if you're listening, mate. I didn't mean it.
I wish him no ill. He was just, I'm sure he's learned. I'm sure he's matured.
I'm sure,
like we all have. But I did have a funny Busta story that I was thinking about because I wanted to also shout out Ellie Cola because Ellie loved Busta and they loved working together. But Busta was not easy either. I mean, he was great and I love him to death. But he was notoriously late all the time. Right. Mm-hmm. As a lot of artists were, but he really took it to another level. So as the label, that was a label rep that was responsible for getting him to a shoot or whatever, everybody would be calling me. Where is he? Where is he? Oh, he's parking the car. He's doing I'd get every excuse in the book. So, our little trick was we used to pad the call time. Right. So if MTV wanted Busta there at 3, I would tell him, you got to be there at noon. All right.
Right.
And then,
wow.
So there was one shoot and Ellie was there and it was somewhere downtown. I don't remember what it was for, but I told him you got to be there at noon because his call time was actually 3 and he showed up at noon or somewhere close to it. And I was just
pissed.
He was mad and he was mad at me. And now I look back on it and laugh and we've laughed about it since, but yeah.
Were you like, oh my God, I got the call time wrong. It was East Coast instead of Pacific time, or you're like, look, dude, you're always late. I had to pad it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what do you want me to do? I had to get you here. It's my responsibility to get you here on time. So I gotta do
Byron shared a story similar to that with Little Kim for a VMA's poster shoot. That he's like, we were set up like all day waiting, and he's like, she showed up as the sun was setting. He said, but it ended up making the photos look even better than they were planning on. But he's like, I just had to stand there for 6 hours telling them she's on her way. She's on her way.
Was that downtown, like in Soho or something?
I don't know. It was a David LaChapelle shoot for the VMAs. Yeah.
Oh, because there was, I will tell you, Little Kim, I think might be the only artist that actually made me cry because for something like that, she just, oh God. Yeah, I literally just broke down in tears. I was so frustrated. I couldn't deal. So, yeah, not another one that was not the easiest. To say the
least. We have almost come to the end. I just want to squeeze in one more that we love to ask our guests. You obviously spend a lot of time going to shows, new artists, established artists, all different venues. Do you have a favorite New York City venue and show that you attended whilst at your time working at the labels?
While being there? Oh, that's a great question. I mean, I spent so much time at Irving Plaza, the Mercury Lounge, Bowery Ballroom. Actually, that I mentioned Super Drag earlier. They're playing the Bowery Ballroom in October. I don't think I've been there in like 10 years. So that'll be kind of cool. So I would say probably Roseland. I would say probably Irving Plaza was probably one of my favorites because I like to used to go up on the balcony, if you were if you were in the with the cool kids, you got to go in the
Yeah.
balcony and see it from above. So,
those are nice size venues to
yeah,
see a good
yeah,
band, whether that was as big as they could go for that time before they jumped to an arena. Or
yeah, definitely, definitely. And then in terms of like my favorite show from that era, even though it wasn't a band that I worked with, it would have to be Radiohead at the Beacon.
Oh,
That was like a magical out of body experience that I don't
Wait,
think
was that the $2 bill show?
It was not. It was a
Okay.
regular show that they did at the Beacon. Might have been for Amnesiac. I don't think it was Kid A. It was around that time period. They played, I think, a few nights there, but I went to that. That was one of the most memorable shows I've been to. I've seen them a few times, but that was amazing.
yeah, they're probably on my list as well. I saw them a lot when I lived in LA, and I
Yeah.
saw them at Santa Barbara Bowl,
Ooh, that
which was a
sounds
good
awesome.
one. And I
Yeah.
forget which tour it was. It could have been that, but he had a camera and he was facing his back to the audience, and he had a camera on his piano right close to his face. And on the screens, you just saw him so close, but you saw like the audience behind him. And then at the Santa
Huh.
Barbara Bowl, it overlooked the ocean as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it was just incredible.
Oh, that sounds
And the
awesome.
$2 bill Perry just talked about was so long, and it was just one of my favorite Radiohead shows.
Oh,
I think it was like
oh,
two
I
and a
can
half hours.
imagine. Oh, I can imagine. Now, where was that shot at the Beacon?
No,
I
it
think
was in New York, was it?
I thought it was the Beacon.
There used to be a venue on like 20 something street that I
The
can't
Cutting
remember.
Room.
Was it the Cutting Room?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
saw a couple of good shows there
Yeah.
too.
They
That
had, I remember seeing bands like Keen there
Yes, yeah,
and stuff
Mm.
like that.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
think that I saw like some of our smaller,
The showcase
bands.
venue.
Yes, yeah, that was a cool spot to see stuff too. So
Yeah.
yeah, no
Well,
shortage of great venues.
yeah. Diane, this has been great.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you for
Catching
taking the
up.
time.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, and it was really nice to kind of stroll down memory lane, because it's been a long time. I've kind of been removed from this business for my daughter's almost 18 years old, so it's been about 18 years. So
Yeah.
I know time flies. So it's really been awesome, though. I appreciate it. We did. Yeah. Thank you for talking me into doing it, Perry.
No, thank you for agreeing. We were so happy to have you. Now, if you talk to anybody else
Yes.
and they're like on the fence, say, you should do it. You should do it. It's
So
really
much fun.
Yeah. No, I'll definitely I'll be your cheerleader, encourage folks to do it. Although I can't imagine you're getting much pushback. I would imagine most people are.
It is, we have some, other ideas and announcements coming. So
Awesome. All right.
yeah,
Well, I will continue to tune in,
thank
and
you.
thank you guys for doing this. And hopefully this is just the start. Maybe we can all do a reunion one of these days. You never
That
know.
would be
Maybe this will bring us all
amazing.
Let's
together.
do it.
Yeah. Sounds awesome. All
All
right.
right.
All
Good
right.
to see
Thank you,
you.
Diane. Have a good weekend.
All right. Thanks, you guys. You too. And
Bye.
Okay.
well, all right.
Yep.
Take care.
Talk to you later. Bye.